My name is Nkunda Felix.
I'm Robert Kirabo Nyonyintono.
It's glory for Uganda for the first time in history.
Anything in sports, join me.
Wake up to Good Morning Uganda, weekdays on UBC.
Live from Nile Avenue in UBC Studios, this is Good Morning Uganda.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Now today, the 21st day of June 2021. Also the day just after the celebration of Father's Day. Now I thought it was important for us to start on that note to celebrate all fathers out there. It was a special day. I did see a lot of messages flying over, and quite unusual that we celebrate fathers. Well, it was quite a beautiful gesture from every one of you who did send out messages to your fathers, and I saw a lot of messages again flashing on social media. Celebrations are one of the things we need in times like this. In times of COVID-19, we need something to make us smile, make us realize that we are people of happiness, joy, and fondness. But of course, we must also keep ourselves in reminder that COVID-19 is real. And today, Monday the 21st, we also want to remind you as Good Morning Uganda that take care of yourself. Let us fight to prevent the spread of COVID, because you and me know that we can't avoid the treatment of the same. But of course, we're also here to give you Good Morning Uganda as a normal drill. Now we'll be giving you our current affairs, international stories, sports, the papers, very much more of the also in-depth analyses. But nevertheless, I'm also here with my colleagues, Robert and Priscilla. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning, Felix, and good morning, everybody who has decided to wake up with us here on UBC TV. Now we know you're home. Majority of Ugandans are not really essential workers, so you're home. But how best do you use this time of being home? Felix just talked about Father's Day. Happy belated Father's Day to all the fathers there. There's a very interesting tweet that is by General Eli Tumwine that I was reading yesterday when he said, a father is not just a DNA, but one who stretches beyond the ordinary, a call for duty to provide for his family. So all the fathers, I know this is one of the most trying moments in the lockdown where you must find for your family something to eat and of course meet the bills that are mandatory to many people at this time. But all we are saying is we are in a tough time. Let's be considerate, let's be tolerant with one another. Each of us has got a burden that they're handling right now. But in everything, there's still something good to be proud of and to celebrate the fathers.
Well, of course, Priscilla is also here, and I would want to say good morning to you, please, Priscilla.
Good morning to you, Felix and Robert, and good morning to Uganda. Welcome to yet a brand new week for June 2021. However much the week starts off on an interesting note where you don't have pressure to wake up in the morning and actually go to your workplace. And some of you are actually having sort of insomnia because of what has happened in the last 24 to 48 hours. Readjusting into total lockdown has been hard, but still we can't fail to celebrate Father's Day. Spiritual fathers, biological fathers, guardians, any kind of fatherhood figure that you have had in your life has been worth a celebration, especially in such a time as this when we are fighting fighting with the pandemic, COVID-19, not just as Uganda, but as the entire globe. We must appreciate that fathers are definitely key to everything that we do, especially structure-wise, from family settings. If there was no father, there wouldn't be any children, if you get what I mean. My name is Priscilla Nalwoga, and we're definitely glad to have you here with us on Good Morning Uganda.
Now, of course, very much of that is what we'll be giving you in this particular production of Monday. Now, being a Monday, we expect, as Priscilla did say, that most of you are home, and also Robert did echo the same, that most of you are home. But maybe we should also talk about what best you can do when you're home, and maybe I'll start with Robert just briefly. What are some of the things you think you would do if you weren't coming to work like you are today?
Key on the agenda would be to bond with the family, better understand my people. You know, most of the times, our fathers, parents, we've looked at just providing. And that is when you raise children that you even don't know them, you don't know some of their habits. So this is a time to better understand your partner. This is a time to better understand your children and ensure there are some values that you want these people at your home to know. How do you dialogue? How do you discover the do's and don'ts of this home and ensure that you inculcate values that really those that brought you up and get to know people more.
So what are some of the things you may do to bond with the family?
Good question.
Okay, first,
just 2-3 things.
2-3 things. Having
Outline.
fruitful discussions with the people, with the children at home.
Discussions.
Yes,
Okay.
discussions.
It sounds very tough. Let me tell you, now this is where the
Discussions sound
challenge for fathers comes in. The relation. Now imagine you go to Gavi. So Gavi, we're going to have a discussion about what?
There are many things. I think
There are many things we can discuss. At 3, we can discuss the radius where you should be playing from. We can discuss the nature of friends you have. As a dad, I can tell you.
And that is in terms of bonding?
In terms of bonding,
Okay.
yes.
That is
Discussion.
tough.
The second one would be?
Well, working out together.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Working out together,
Third
doing
one?
life together, in certain things. Then also doing work.
What?
Teaching
That's the same
some
thing as
bit
the
of
second one.
No, working out together could
Working
be
out as in physical,
in
is what he
physical,
meant.
yes.
Okay.
Because
Priscilla.
they need to be healthy, but also doing work together, seeing how these kids of mine are hands-on. You know.
Okay.
Yes.
Priscilla.
Well, I will relate back to the first lockdown that we had in 2020. I was really ready for that lockdown. I got all the movies, the series, the books that I wanted to read, everything that I thought I needed in that lockdown. I pumped myself with it and I got ready for the lockdown. By the time it came, I was good to go. Unfortunately, the reality is different. The reality is that this pandemic does affect your mental, it does affect your spiritual, it does affect your physical. Now, when we go mental, people are now isolated. And as Ugandans, we're really not used to being, you know, alone or being so cautious of each other, neighbors. You can't go there, you can't do this, you can't do that. That already causes a strain on your mental health. And I know so many people that have struggled with mental health. When they have just recovered from mental health, now we have to get back into the second lockdown. So for me, actually my advice would be take care of your mental health and be each other's keeper. Pick up a phone call and call somebody. Text them, WhatsApp them. Social media is there. Now would be a good time for you to use it, you know, to bear fruit and ensure that you take on someone. Something else, spiritually. Churches are on a second lockdown and people had been used to getting back to church and getting that whole gathering fellowship feeling, ambience. But again, now it's lockdown. You have to find your own spiritual pillar, your own cornerstone on which you can actually be able to lean and thrive through this time. And then much as you have planned to do this and that, the reality is that each day is going to come differently because different sectors are going to respond to the presidents directly differently, which will affect you differently. What I suggest is that you take one day at a time, smile through it and remind yourself that this too has to pass.
Now with that, we'll go into our local stories.
And we will begin with, that is the Church of Uganda. Despite the fact that churches or places of worship are closed, leaders are finding ways through which they can reach their faithful through radio, TV, and of course the internet. Well, we had the Archbishop of the Church of Uganda, Dr. Samuel Stephen Kazimba Mugal, who asked government and those in charge to include religious leaders among the categories of essential workers. Dr. Kazimba also appealed to the country to maintain their faith spite of COVID-19 pandemic, where many cannot fellowship and also listen to various preachings in groups. This was during a Sunday service held at his residence on Namirembe Hill. Dr. Samuel wants government to consider religious leaders as essential workers. Dr. Zimba also wants government to pay attention to the well-being of doctors and nurses who are on the front line of fighting COVID-19 so that they do not lose their lives in the process of saving others. In the same incidents, the Church of Uganda has declared 3 days of prayer to ensure that God prevails in the situation and we fight more losses of lives due to COVID-19. The Archbishop Kazimba also sent warm greetings to all men that were marking Father's Day.
Ministry of Health Assistant Commissioner, Vaccine and Immunization, Dr. Alfred Griwale, has addressed Ugandans on key issues, especially in regards to COVID-19. Dr. Griwale and his cohorts in the medical profession are dismayed by the misinformation that is curtailing the fight against COVID-19. Ministry of Health has allayed fears of Ugandans about misinformation that is derailing the COVID-19 fight equally. And the ministry has now started educating the public about issues starting with the vaccine, which despite not being 100% effective, is a remedy, especially after the 2 doses. The other issue that has perpetuated is the testing versus vaccination issue. Why then also do vaccinated people present similar reactions as COVID-19 patients is another question on Ugandans' lips. The ministry has, however, assured Ugandans that despite the lockdown, vaccination will continue, but through outreaches at more centers to avoid further spread.
Away from vaccines and the challenges there, for we now look at the situation, how it was downtown, where one of our reporters moved down yesterday. It was a calm and quiet atmosphere downtown Kampala as most businesses were adapting to the 24 days COVID-19 scaled down guidelines issued by government recently. A tour around the city and its environment, you'd realize that most passenger transport terminals were turned into cargo. During normal operations, Namayimba bus terminal is home to over 100 trans-border passenger buses. But after the new COVID national lockdown guidelines, the terminal now largely lies empty throughout the day. It is also cargo lorries that are moving to different destinations. Another transport industry hit by COVID-19 scaled-down guidelines is the border industry, with their operations only regulated to carry cargo and sick persons. Many have adopted to park their motorcycles, but with a section of outcries to government. The 42-day ban slapped on public transport and private cars has seen motorcycles increasingly becoming an immediate transport option for some people. Generally, Kampala and its neighborhood was entirely calm, with a few spotted railers on motorcycles.
Away from that, the National COVID Task Force, chaired by the Prime Minister, Honorable Robin Nabanja, has created committees to oversee adherence of the lockdown measures issued recently. Honorable Nabanja says government will offer financial support to the vulnerable groups greatly affected by the measures. She adds that funds have also been set aside to facilitate the frontline workers in fight against the pandemic. Ministry of Works and Transport has also been tasked to come up with special permits that will ease the movement of essential workers. Different committees set up include that of transport, security, finance, among others.
Indeed, it's a trying moment, Priscilla, and we all have to be considerate that everyone is finding it really hard to make ends meet. But you talked about the task force and enforcement. Yesterday on a sad note, we lost, that is police constable Okwiri, that is at Kabalagala, as he was enforcing COVID-19 guidelines, where someone intentionally, it is believed and said that intentionally someone rammed into him, killing him instantly.
Well, may his soul rest in peace, and this is a sad thing coming through, and people must be mindful that while you may have your biases against police and law enforcers, now is their time to do their job, and you must respect that they are also human beings while they're doing their jobs. So courteousness should be one to another while we go through this total lockdown for 42 days. But away from the total lockdown conversation, on the international scene, Amania has decided who's going to be their next elected leader, among other stories that have made headlines on the international scene with Felix.
Now we'll start from the story from France, where we see France regional election, that is Macron and Le Pen, failed to make ground in exit poll. Now, early results indicate both President Emmanuel Macron and his opponent Marine Le Pen will fail to make the gains they were hoping in the first breakthrough. Now, the polls at least show that Mr. Macron's centrist party is at risk of falling at least short of 10% of the needed to take part in the second round, which will be happening next weekend. Now, one of his MPs, Arure Baje, also said that this was a slap in their face. Now, the Her Party, at least the Her Party, was expected to stop Sunday's first round polling and win at least one region for the first time. Now, Shalista described the record as low voter turnout, but also projected a 66% abstention as a civic disaster in terms of the pandemic. Now, still looking at international stories, we'll be looking at Myanmar's junta leader that is in Moscow for second trip abroad since the coup. Now, Myanmar has been in turmoil since the military overthrew the civilian leader, that is Aung San Suu Kyi, in her National League of Democracy, and we're looking at government in February. Now, junta leader Min Aung at least left the capital, that is Naypyidaw, on Sunday for a special flight to attend Moscow's conference on international security. In MRTV also came out to say the same. Now, he was attending on an invitation of the Russian defense minister, where he added that he had been greeted by the Russian ambassador to Myanmar at the airport, and he did not give the details on how long he would stay in Russia. But nevertheless, also many outcries have come out in relation of the same, accusing Russia to be conspiring with an illegitimate government there in Myanmar. Now, back to Africa, while we see Ethiopians to vote in an election overshadowed by crisis and conflict, and the vote on Monday in a national and regional election that the Prime Minister has billed as proof of his commitment to democracy after decades of repressive rule in Africa's second and most population in the same nation. And the Prime Minister Aid Abeid, who is 44 years of age, oversaw the sweeping of political and economic reforms after his appointment in 2018 by the ruling coalition. But some rights activists also came out to say that he has been one of the greatest abusers of human rights. Nevertheless, a couple of months, if not years ago, when he did receive the Global Prize for Human Rights Recognition. However, the people in Ethiopia there await the results of this vote, as they call them, that there will be a fundamental breakthrough for whether Ethiopia will go above or sink below in times of the Tigray region conflict and also the COVID-19. Well, basically that's what we had for you, international stories. Now about the same stories, you will be able to catch them on our social media platforms, on Facebook, on Twitter, and also on YouTube. You can catch us live, be able to rewind, forward, and pause. But
if I might interject, you have talked about elections from France, you have talked about elections in Ethiopia. I would like to hear your assessment from the elections, that especially in the African continent, vis-a-vis other continents that have had elections in this pandemic time. What has it been like? What are the learning lessons for us? Robert.
First, when we look at most of these countries, after the elections, we've had a rise in COVID-19 cases. And some have wondered, was it really necessary to fulfill either a constitutional mandate or one of the pillars of democracy? So first, that is something we have to consider. How do we have an election, a scientific, I think is the term we're using, a scientific election that will ensure we do not have a rise in cases of COVID-19 shortly after an election. This is what some experts are saying that happened to Uganda, because when we went in this election, we tried to make it scientific, but to some extent, we didn't perfect the art of a scientific election and campaign as well. So to me, that is the biggest as now, because what we have is this global pandemic, a threat to many nations.
Felix, there's a trend that is catching up or changing the politics of each country. In Uganda, we had scientific, meaning a couple of people were allowed to attend the rallies that were physical rallies. Then there was media that was adapted in the different campaigns. In the USA, we saw them taking the ballot through mail, which was something totally new. What is your assessment?
Well, of course, democracies must be able to be vividly visible in all times, but also keeping into focus that the law mustn't be in vacuum. It must also be in sync with times. Now, depending on times, countries may not have to go for elections, depending on the times. Now, though, because of the defined greediness and selfishness of most leaders, they will have to go for elections, even at the risk of losing people. You saw what happened in Burundi and other countries, and the effects are also equally seen. You saw what happened in Tanzania, and the effects were seen. So sometimes we must also believe that in as much as we may want to be enforcers of the law or hold tight to democracy, we must also keep in mind that the law does not act in a vacuum. That's why when they draft a constitution, they give room to amendment, and that is simply symbolic, because the belief is that times will change when these particular law will need to be appealed, or there's even room to enact other laws. So you cannot be caught in a corner like, I have to do elections, I have to do elections. So you must reappreciate the times. For example, Ethiopia in particular, what I've been talking about, you know the conflict that is in the Tigray region, you know how much they have been hit by the pandemic, you know all these things, and now you're going with such a population into an election. So it's it's sort of like a mixed feeling, but that is what your leaders can offer.
All right, thank you so much. Well, the law does not act in vacuum, neither do the directives that were given by the president of Uganda over the Friday. And now they will also not be acting in vacuum. Slowly but surely, everyone will find a new normal in these next 42 days. But remember, COVID-19 is real. Do wear your mask, sanitize, carry that sanitizer. After interacting with a person, spray your hands and sanitize as much as possible, and stay at home. You do not need to move. But also, we do have the nice natural remedies that have been recommended by the Ministry of Health.
Well, don't forget to have yourself, that is Hallelujah ginger tea and Hallelujah turmeric, because in addition to the soaps, also boosting your immune system with what you take, what you eat, what you drink will do you very great at such a time in fighting not only the pandemic, but a couple of diseases, and these products will do you great in that.
Now, of course, we'll take a break, have a song for the day, and that will be coming from Pato Rankin, one Nigerian reggae artist. Also will be doing for us a number that is a replication of something called Heal the World. So we hope you enjoy this song rather, and know your place and which part of the world you're supposed to heal.
was brought to you by...
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go. MTN.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we love, because it's those things that bring us close together.
COVID-19 chijja kugwa. If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear a mask properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Therefore, understanding this model. Excuse me, lady. Who do you think you are? A queen?
Hey, haven't you heard? Get Airtel Chillax bundles and browse like a queen.
Get Airtel Chillax bundles that do not expire and browse like a queen or king. Dial *175# or use My Airtel app.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning once again, and thank you for keeping it on UBC TV. It's now time we look at our newsreel story. But one thing in Africa is whenever it rains, it is a blessing. And of course, we believe only good things. As we speak, it is raining cats and dogs here in Kampala. Of course, remembering that we have about 2 rainy seasons. That is the March to May and actually September to December. Now we're in June and it is still showering. Maybe these are some of the blessings that you're going to get throughout this day, so do not lose hope. There could be more light coming at the end of the tunnel. Well, we want to look at government that is support in the times of COVID-19. We must accept that yes, COVID-19 has posed a couple of challenges. And recently we saw His Excellency, in a bid to fight the spread of COVID-19, come out with guidelines which included locking up a couple of sectors and a number of people home, where now they are not able to go to their workplaces. And knowing that a number of Ugandans work hand to mouth. What they earn is what they feed on. Now, government has come up with a couple of initiatives aimed at ensuring that people find means of at least having the basic, which is food to put on table. And unlike the previous lockdown, this time around, yesterday the Prime Minister disclosed that we're going to be having funds given to the vulnerable on mobile money. And they will be getting the amount. We are yet to understand the figures and how the process will go on. But Priscilla, just learning that now, instead of the posho and beans, government will be giving in some amount of money on mobile money for someone to sort themselves during this trying moment.
Well, we are looking at government and its support towards this COVID-19 pandemic. The second wave is here, and we're looking at twists and turns that are going to come through in how it's going to actually support different entities, different sectors, and the whole of Uganda citizens in adjusting and adhering to the lockdown that was declared. When we reflect back to 2020, we had relief funds, strikes, and programs that were designed by the different ministries to be able to cater for the lockdown. And given the fact that it was the first time, we did, have programs such as the food relief program, where we had portion beans distributed to various people. Some regions got, some regions to date have never got.
Kampala and Wachiso.
Yes, that medley benefited from the portion beans. Then you get to look at that one program, the food relief program, and the breakdown of how it was actually implemented or executed, for that matter. I remember we had, it was members of the army that were in charge of this distribution of food. So you would have leaders that would come to your door or your community or Chisakati, and they would knock on your door, take the details of your names, the people in your household, how many by number, and then that would determine how much they give you in terms of food relief. And then thereafter it would be followed by the army coming and distributing that food accordingly. And then it would be ticked and the journey went on. Of course, it was different for different parts, but ideally that was the picture of food relief. But we looked at a recent report that came out, accountability for the funds that were given back then in 2020 to cover and cater for lockdown to the different sectors. That there were loopholes in how these monies were distributed and how the programs were actually rolled out. Now we do have a new parliament, we do have a new cabinet, new state ministers, and so this, first of all, is a new regime that is handling the second wave of COVID-19 and the total lockdown, which is a good thing because they're going to get to have to be pressured to do things differently in assessment of what was done last year.
So they're going to be having learning from the past mistakes and finding ways of avoiding them.
Yes. So speaking from the learning from the past mistakes, we do have Right Honorable who's in charge of the Prime Minister, and one of the resolutions she has come out with is to actually adopt mobile money as a relief to the citizens of Uganda, and use that to be able to distribute monies to different individuals to be able to take care of themselves during COVID-19 second wave, which I would like to say, first of all, it's a positive. It's a positive because, one, it's going to merge two sectors. You do have the Prime Minister's office that is going to be calling upon the sector of ICT and communications to be able to help them in rolling out this campaign. And that means that they will have to use such entities to be able to use mobile money to be able to distribute to the subscribers of the communication services available in Uganda. The other thing is transparency in terms of what will be done and how it will be done. Will build public trust, if you ask me, because it's not so much a complicated system. One, it's not an expensive system as was the system of you have to get a task force on the ground to the community to be able to do door-to-door Registration, first of all. Before you go to distribution, registration, that is, you have to pay those people to do their job. You have to cater to the fact that they need meals, they need transport, and they probably need housing while they're tackling different communities. Those are expenses. Then you look at the distribution team also. Those are other forms of expenses. So the expenses going out for a country that is still recovering from the first lockdown were quite many. Vis-a-vis now adopting other systems or forms of relief that can actually cut down on the cost of distribution and engaging in the community, but still achieving the same thing of catering to the citizens of Uganda.
Let me bring in Felix. Felix, this new approach that the Prime Minister mentioned yesterday to Ugandans now using mobile money. I just need your take on this, briefly.
Well, of course, very much of the relief issues, I think Priscilla has quite handled, and it doesn't make any difference anyway. From the first one, you see, and the reason why government doesn't do relief, it must be in terms of service, and even for me, if you want my opinion, in terms even of the name they choose, relief is different. It is incumbent on government, by the way, and in a special way, Uganda has what we call a disaster preparedness full ministry. Again, the beauty is that it's under the Prime Minister's office. But however, this, what you want to call relief, is not actually relief. If it was budgeted for, how is it relief, nevertheless? But the whole idea of giving money, the question is how, one, transparent will it be? And again, will it serve the purpose? Because for you to evaluate a project, if I may call it, you must look into how, or to answer the W's, how effective will it be in solving the problem? What is the problem today? Because you must have a problem question. What is the problem? What are you solving? Is the problem hunger? Is the problem rent? Is the problem movement? Is the problem business? Now, I think it's a good gesture coming from government, but it is not a conclusive solution for people today. One, in terms of education, in terms of economy, in terms of transport, in terms of, you know, I feel that it's simply a symptom being treated, that maybe this will help bring down a bit of the heckling, people heckling, saying all these things.
Well, one made a comment that what is important now, away from a person staying safe and not contracting COVID-19, is many people now are looking at what do we put on table, what do we eat, how do we feed our families. That is now the priority of many Ugandans away from earning. And don't you think then any relief that comes into providing what a person will eat to see them for the next day is quite moving in the right direction?
How many times are they going to be saying this money? Is it a weekly plan? Is it a monthly plan? Is it a after 3 days plan? You know, and that in its own self.
The inspiration they're picking from is how developed countries have tried to use that very same mode of funding and catering to the society to be able to manage COVID-19. For example, across Europe and in the USA, they actually did use this kind of program, cash relief, where they would actually be depositing money in people's bank accounts, and you know, the banking system would help to extend relief to the people. And according to a person's needs, they get to actually use that money in accordance to be able to survive through that pandemic. And so perhaps in relation to how that actually helped, you get to see that they're borrowing our relief from somewhere else and adapting it into our system.
Well, we hope for more information and we'll be communicating as we receive it. Remember, this is something that was just mentioned yesterday, but keep it with us on UBC TV. We'll be giving you more information how it's going to be rolled out, how you can benefit. Remember, it is aid for the vulnerable people. Away from this monetary relief, let's look at other areas. Felix, today, if you look at 2020, there were monies, stimulus packages sent into, that is a Uganda Development Bank, Microfinance Support Center, for these small businesses that much as that's taken some time not operating, but if they returned, they could move forward. We had the teachers in private schools, the president giving some money to their circle. We had school proprietors, private schools also getting some money. These various forms of packages that came to the population following the lockdown.
Well, I think this whole thing of what you want to call the packages, honestly and truly, and without fear of doubt, I don't know of any of them that has been worked. And I'll be honest with you. And you can start from the one of teachers, you can go to the what so-called stimulus, you can go to mention any. However, what we may require from government in particular is not necessarily handouts. I feel that these could be handouts, but we may require from government what we call aiding, or some of the policies that will aid a better livelihood amidst lockdown. What am I saying? We're looking at utilities. You see, instead of sending a Kirabo 50,000, let us have let us do this gruesome discussion of power tariffs. This is more essential than the 50,000 you want to send Kirabo. Let us talk about the water costs. That in terms of lockdown, for example, if people are going to be working home or what, how about to discuss internet prices? These are more important than the 50,000 shillings or 70 or 100 or 500, whatever much they want to send, because this you can't send all the time. You know, if you want, because you know, and I've said this time and again that you may not be able to deal with an abnormal situation normally. Every other thing will stay normal. The price of everything is normal, yet everything is abnormal. If people are not working in town, if the Chikubo is closed, if arcades are closed, if what is closed, schools, that is abnormal. But then why does the cost of life stay normal? It's the argument. And you and me know that at least 80% of our livelihoods run on government policy. The determinant is entirely government. Even the price of food in the market is determined by government at the end of the day, depending on how they levy their taxes. Right? So I think it is important for the Prime Minister's office to have this bitter discussion in terms of utilities, because if you want to help people, make sure the price of food is low, is affordable, not low, but it's affordable, knowing your population. You know, if for example you're talking about issues of fuel, because this will determine a lot of the prices of the food markets and what and all these things and all that. You get it? So for me, I believe that as you talk about relief and aid and the sectors and what, because in times like this, even the would-be rich people are poor. Take an example of school directors. They can't equally afford meals. Now, when you talk about you're going to give money to the vulnerable, the question is who's vulnerable, who's not vulnerable?
It's relative at such a time.
The whole country is vulnerable in terms of COVID-19. You know, a person who, let's say a company owns 20 buses, because that's about $1 billion shillings investment, but they are vulnerable because they are not earning. And probably they have not earned since, you know, talk about the bar owners, people who are real estate owners. Business is normal because people have been given, for example, now before you know, they are going to come out and say, forgive rent. Now, the question is, who is vulnerable and who is not vulnerable? But if we want to approach issues of aid, let us use a flat spectrum in terms of argument. As I've said, let us deal with the most used utilities of every Ugandan, whether in the village or in the township, whether in rural or urban, whether rich or poor. Let them be beneficiaries of government incentives at times like this. And for me, my emphasis will go to utilities. Look at prices of water today. Look at the amount of money we spend on electricity. You know, look at issues of transportation, fuel, for example. Let's look at food, the cost of food. Now, if these things are put down tremendously, government won't need any aid. Government doesn't have to send Kirabo 100, 200, 100,000, because that is not, and for sure, we don't know if after 42 days, we are going to have another, depending on how the pandemic or the virus would have, or people would have responded.
The problem is not the virus,
yeah, indeed.
Yesterday I was watching Dr. when she said that actually what is happening is we monitor after the 21 days. If we do not see a reduction, then that means other countries, Europe, it's been in and out of a lockdown. It's been in and out of a lockdown. But there's also another issue that I want us to look at. These constant bills that are raising at such a time. You'll find that traders, I was witnessing an incident where landlords were even welding, that is doors to premises, to businesses, for traders not to pick their commodities. Maybe some are planning to pick, then sell online or find ways of how they can do the distribution. We have people where rent is accumulating. And all these, yes, Felix talked about utilities, but there is also a time where we know we have factors of demand and supply, it's a liberal economy. But what extent do you think we can have protection to this extent?
In terms of
rent, there are some of the bills that really people have to meet at such a time.
Now here's the thing, Robert. There are things that, and in particular Uganda, that gave away in terms of power and regulation. Because then it was important that the government creates avenues for it to collect taxes as much as possible. And that's how you gave away your sectors of business and economy. For example, the government in Uganda is not an investor. The government in Uganda doesn't even have a corridor in Kampala in terms of building. I don't know, I can stand to be corrected. Away from the post offices, the what, those authorities, ministry, those are many, but it doesn't have. Now it cannot control. There's a difference between morality and law. In as much as it may sound immoral, it is not illegal for a landlord to demand his money, whether you have just lost your child or it is immoral, but it is not illegal. Now that should also check our minds again as a country. What is our legal regime? There are some sectors that if you cannot regulate them directly, there's a problem. If you remember the last lockdown, the president kept on saying, landlords don't do this, but that's all he could say. If a landlord came and threw you out, no one would charge him, because those are not matters of morality. The landlord will tell you, if you want me not to do this, talk to the bank. And that's now a position that government has hid from.
Well, over and over we've seen...
they have shied away from attacking that issue.
But also it is very challenging. When we look at, for example, you're going to have a government is having a budget where you're going to have domestic borrowing. And domestic borrowing...
You know, even far from the borrowing, Robert, let me tell you, it brings you back to the same thing. Banks are also there waiting.
They've actually become beggars to communities also. Come and borrow from us, come and borrow from us.
Business.
Which shouldn't be the case.
That's because they have no business.
And that's because also they want to thrive.
So everyone is trying to survive, and it's unfortunate that I hope we don't get to a state, if we are not there already, of man eat man. But that as long as Kirabo is alive, he has to feed on Priscilla. That means you have to decide who dies first. Now that means the stronger will eat the other. And that's what is happening in times like this. The landlord will tell you, if it is you selling your plot or car, sell and pay me. Now the bank is also telling the landlord, I don't care. If you kill someone, if you eat someone, I want my money. Now there's someone also at the back of the bank. You get the point? It's a chain. It's a chain. Now for you to deal with the chain, you start from the top. Once you deal with one, it will come down. It will come down. It will come down. But on top of all these things, let me say this. In as much as we discuss relief, you can discuss relief forever, but the fundamental is making sure the virus is away from the country. Because clearly, third world country can't handle any of these things. That's the truth. Even if government wanted to give everyone, it can't.
When you speak of that, stats that are coming out show that in just the last 7 days, we've had the pandemic rising to 52% on the African continent. And then the death rate is now at 32% in just 7 days. 7 days. That means that it's not only in Uganda where we're facing a second wave, where there's even a threat for a third wave, but across different regions, you're having hyper areas, spot areas that have increased COVID-19 cases. And that is absurd. And yet you get to look at the response to it, as Felix would have said, that the actual response would be to COVID-19 directly. One of the best responses that we currently have is the vaccination. But across Africa, that vaccination in percentage is at 2%. And yet you're having, we recently had the G7 having a meeting, and they committed over 1 billion doses of vaccination next year. Now imagine, between now and next year, how many people have we lost? Would we have lost because of COVID-19, because they're committing to next year? So the urgency of commitment is important, especially for the government of Uganda. Also the urgency for policy response. You have talked about business, traders and the likes. Look at it from the angle of the budget. 2021-2022 is rolling out on the 1st of July under a total lockdown. What's the implication of that on business? What's the implication of that economic consequence, social consequence? I would be expecting that different sectors and ministries would be coming up in ensuring that these can actually continue like business. Allow the people to go get their goods out of their shops and be able to sell them within the communities. After all, locomotion is allowed within the community. I can sell a dress I should to be able to feed my family without necessarily putting that pressure on government.
Well, all we can say is we hope that every government will have interventions, and the government has come up with various interventions in terms of COVID-19. The challenge has always been implementation. How do we ensure effective implementation of all these measures? That even the few, if there are monies, we can get them. If there are policies to ensure that businesses are not greatly affected, then we can still have this. But where we have issues of poor implementation, not monitoring, at the end of the day we are going to have the same story we had in 2020, where now we are seeing procurement guidelines faulted, misallocation of funds here and there. And like Felix said, let's look at the basics. There are certain things that we can handle, and these will greatly do to save the lives of people at a particular time. Electricity, water, transportation, these have a multiplier effect if handled very well for an ordinary person to greatly benefit from this. We hope and pray that we learned lessons in the first wave in terms of managing the pandemic, and these will take us to another level.
Let's reflect back on the budget. You know, in this budget, it had been noted that it would be heavily covered by Ugandans. At 76.7% would be totally covered by Ugandans. And now the Ugandans that we will be collecting this tax from are not working, and not able to actually fend for themselves and get something in their pockets. That
the 22 trillion that we expect from domestic revenue will not be able to.
Thank you very much. And what would be the recovery plan for, or the recovery direction for that budget to actually still be able to attain what it's supposed to attain?
It's just like a family. When you budget, for example, to pay school fees for 3 kids, then buy food for 20 kids, then let's say you have about 10 people, family of 10, and you budget that 3 of them are going to school, then that would mean you're going to spend food, money for food on about 7. Then when all these things. Now, excuse me, even in times of pandemics, government doesn't spend as it should have spent. You get the point. It is easier to scale down. For example, last year alone, government saved a lot of money in terms of abroad trips. Over 300 billions. Conference, what, manyanga, bichi, those kind of things. They saved money.
It went back into the
it had to go
treasury.
Back. So for you, as you're looking at it as government is not going to get money, no. In fact, sharp governments, this is an opportunity for them. Yes. Imagine the president gave a directive, cut down staff to 10%. Now, do you know what that means in terms of cost? Yes, in terms of utilities, power, water, transport, what. So, for you, as you're here saying, government, where will government give? The problem is that we don't have, we are not honest, and in general as a country.
And transparent.
We are not honest. We are not a honest race. That's a matter of fact. Whether a priest, whether a pastor, whether a president, whether whatever, we are dishonest people. That's the bottom line. But if we were honest, this would be, for example, Why would government still be struggling at this point? By the way, the question with things like how do we deal with people in a lockdown? In terms of enforcement, in terms of adherence, in terms of communication, because we were at it almost for a full year. What did we learn? Did we do some monitoring and evaluation?
But also, Felix,
because you must be getting better at something.
There could be an argument that the pandemic is also in terms of installing treatment units, ICU units, more beds and all this, that's consuming a very big portion of the funds that maybe we would think would be present.
Do you really want to talk about funds, Robert? You know you don't want to go there. You know we shouldn't go there. You know we shouldn't. Because if you want to talk about dishonesty, then it's cluttered in that area. Let's not even go there. Let's save ourselves from that. Let us just have this other discussion. Because if you're talking about what were installed, if I may ask you, where were the installations?
Because we saw government ensuring that most of the regional hospitals, yes, get ICU units that were previously not there. This time around, still, we see that there is so much.
And that was in relation of which expenditure?
Because if you look at some of the savings, maybe one would believe that one of the hardest area is that is.
Would I be right to say that is an opinion of yours?
Well, I look at what when we were given how the monies that were given to the Ministry of Health were being spent, they were breaking down categories of these expenditures, and it seemed a humongous figures over a budget that then resources, supplementaries, yearning
I love your choice of word. It seemed. But for me, what I'm trying to say, Robert, is this, that because of our dishonesty, you see that we are still grappling with the things that should be obvious. Which should be obvious. We talked about, last lockdown, the discussion was about how do we help Ugandans maximize the opportunities of the lockdown. What are the opportunities of a lockdown? We look at production, which did very well in terms of sanitizers, if you remember, and some other things that come with. But the question is, what is the government's contribution in terms of that? There are people, you see, the country may be losing, but there are people who should be gaining. There's people who should be gaining again. You talked about the stimulus packages and what. How about if those were directed to enforcing electronic transactions between people? If that was put into boosting electronic transactions like internet, did we form up any other companies? Did we learn anything? For example, if teaching alone in terms of electronic has become a problem, that's something we should have done a long time ago. We don't have a general forum for education. We don't have an electronic general forum for education. Last time I was listening to, I think, CBA and another one, and everyone was teaching math, chemistry, S2, S1, P3, P4, and I'm like, So, if you have a house that has a P1, a P3, a P4, and a S5, so I think the issue is about harmonizing.
How do we harmonize?
Yeah, and both the private sector and government must decide to agree and harmonize. We must learn better, but all of us are simply becoming comfortable, and that's why when the government closes, you see people try to say what but how have you learned from the previous? Because this is like we are back in the same place.
Well, we'll go for a break, but very important is how have we learned from the previous times when we were in the pandemic? That is the first lockdown. Have we gotten lessons, and how are we going to ensure that the mistakes that were incurred in the first lockdown do not be repeated in this second lockdown, to ensure that we move forward as a country despite the pandemic living with us? We'll go for a break and we'll return shortly.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Where's Bob? Anyone seen Bob? Bob? Bob!
Over here.
Where?
Over here.
How did you get in there?
With my Airtel Money MasterCard.
Airtel Money MasterCard? But you don't even have a bank account. How did you get a card?
Well, it's not a card, but it works just like one. It's virtual, so no plastic, and it's safer.
But what are you doing there?
I want to buy Nancy a birthday gift, book my flight tickets, renew my Big Click subscription, and order a shipment.
For all things online, the Airtel Money MasterCard. It's not a card, but works just like one. Get one on the Airtel Money menu on your phone.
If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear a mask properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
Obadde okyeteekerateekera. Kaseera kaakanayo kyani mu kisaawe ky'omupiira kalimu vaawo mpitewo kaakaasa mmeeme n'obuwanguzi bw'ebyafaayo kyonna ekibaawo ng'abawagizi tuyimirira wamu ne ttiimu zaffe okutuusiza ddala ku nkomerero. Gino gye mipiira gy'oteekeddwa okulaba. Weekuumire ku GoTV olw'emipiira egy'akamalirizo egitabangawo mu byafaayo by'omupiira.
GoTV, love it.
Therefore, understanding this model. Excuse me, lady. Who do you think you are? A queen?
Haven't you heard? Get Airtel Chillax bundles and browse like a queen.
Get Airtel Chillax bundles that do not expire and browse like a queen or king. Dial *175# or use My Airtel app.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Digital tax stamps are applied to goods or their packaging with security features or codes to avoid forging of goods and enable tracking and tracing capabilities.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, either act now or perish. That is not only for COVID, but also when it comes to global warming. I now have a pocket square, and so does Felix, which is show your strips how temperatures have been rising in Uganda since 1901. But we'll discuss that later on with Nalwoga Priscilla and of course Felix. We look at what is trending in the print media this morning, looking at the New Vision, a very big headline there, government to give cash handouts. This time that is one of the things we've been discussing earlier on in this program. We also look at stay home, that is orders take effect. Yes, in case you're moving to town, or you'll find that yes, the enforcement, the coercive forces will be there to find out what brings you to town. Why are you not home when we're in our lockdown to fight the spread of the virus? We also look at Katumba shooting, police recovers exhibits. Okay, that is more regarding investigations there into the attempted assassination of the life of General Edward Katumba Wamala. We look at land. Buganda explains rise in conflicts. That is land conflicts, the land question there. Then traffic, 120 Ugandan girls rescued by Kenyan police. These were being trafficked out of the country. And also lockdown, ideas for making quick money. Yes, there's always a blessing in every solution, in every problem that comes your way. And now here they're telling you there are ways you can make quick money out of the lockdown. Buganda caucus, 5 MPs in tight race for the top position. Yes, who will be leading or chairing the Buganda caucus. Those are members of parliament from Buganda. Still more, they give you lockdown on the education. The New Vision brings you senior 2 biology, chemistry, then senior 4 physics and mathematics. I'll look at then the Daily Monitor with Felix.
Of course, the Daily Monitor will be looking at how Uganda lost the COVID-19 fight and theft and misuse of pandemic money, poor policies during general elections, failure to set up proper health systems, abuse of standards and operating procedures as well. Now, music today, Africa's top 100 songs, and also in healthy living after 40, nutrition and metabolism needs. Lista, we're also looking at a 12-page pullout on the Parliament, that is the 11th Parliament, and lockdown, government to give money in place of food. Now, 32 registrars, magistrates were promoted also, but also the list comes out to say, hope it doesn't end in tears. As usual, government to give money instead of food. Now, inside the Daily Monitor, we'll be looking at Caster Semenya. The South African athlete team missed out again on Saturday in, that is Rosenberg, Germany, to qualify for the 5,000 meters in Tokyo. And also, Pop Bucks appeal to aid displaced Hungary. And of course, now from the archives, we see here President Museveni demonstrates to journalists how to use dumbbells. Declares war against Great Britain, and Uganda's first man who attempted to assassinate Ronald Reagan.
Still in the New Vision, we bring you more facts you know about the second wave. Some of the unanswered questions. Actually, we look at, is it safe for me to get a COVID-19 vaccine if I would like to have a baby that is in 1 day? So they give you more answers to that. We also look at how we're standing as a country. Today we have new deaths stand at 34. That means in the last 24 hours we've had 34 people succumb to COVID-19. Total death now is at 660. Confirmed cases now stand at 1,367. Please, please, please not be part of these statistics. Perfect those drills. Today in history, we look at, it was on this very date, the 21st of June, the year 2000, when Toro Prime Minister was arrested. That is John Sanyu Katram was arrested. And still on this very date, but the year 1887, Queen Victoria celebrated Golden Jubilee. Also know your Member of Parliament, it is Yona Kayongera, who is MP Busiki North. And still we look at more regarding the symptoms of COVID-19. If you have a fever, a cough, shortness of breath, seek medical attention from the right gazetted hospitals to manage COVID-19. Yes,
now in sports from the Daily Monitor, COVID costs Uganda global engagement. And of course, from KCCA last year to now, the cricket cranes, rugby sevens, bombers, sports revealing how much they have lost. Now, Sekafa cranes regroup, and of course, COVID-19 cases bitter in sports. Now, FUBA considering a residential camp for silverback gazelles, and of course, fans police clash as Ashley Edge, that is Esperanza chief, shocks Wydad. And now in Cibid, Spain, left limping there. And of course, much more of the sports where we see Karoro, Checks, Cheptenge, and cranes in camp for Sekafa preps.
In the Vision Sports, today we look at that is how reliable are our COVID tests? A very big question there. How reliable are our COVID-19 tests? And we see our team that is preparing to go for the Olympics, that is in Tokyo. But also look at that is the Euro 20 statistics there. and of course the fixtures and results for you are really brought out there in the new vision today as Brazilians advance. Yes, Felix, in the world of sports.
Well, of course, having said that, from sports now, there's quite something interesting, and Molin and Priscilla will be telling us more about this, and that explains why we're putting on a square pocket leaflets there that are indicators. I would want to hear from Molin what exactly we are wearing and why we are wearing it, actually, for our viewers to understand and how they can be a part of it.
Yes, Felix, thank you for that. You're wearing something, but you're not aware what you are actually putting on. So that is interesting, which is why I think today the UN Organization on Climate Change, that is the UNFCCC, has decided to take this day to launch what we are calling a Show Your Strip campaign. So that is the strip that is actually representing how much temperatures are changing over the globe as well as over the whole country. For us here, what we're wearing is actually for Uganda. So you can see I'm also wearing the red. I think the extreme part of it, that is where we are now. We're looking at temperatures having moved from blue up to red. And this, we're trying to make it as a campaign. So the UN Organization on Climate Change has invited all broadcast meteorologists together with different broadcast houses to move on with this campaign, and that explains why we are painting everything with these warming stripes.
All right, Molin Kenyana showed you a very interesting dialogue that we're definitely looking at. Not only the pandemic is affecting communities, but also when you look at the temperatures changing in Uganda, most especially, we're looking at since 1901. In 1910, we get to see we had blue zones. In 1930, we still had blue.
Yes,
and you're yet to tell us
this is when we were actually good. So because the blues are like when temperatures were into the normal. We are not seeing anything out of the ordinary. They're just normal temperatures. But then as years go on, that means as we start interacting with our climate, bringing in all these emissions, the heat is getting much into the atmosphere. That is when we reach, like for example, 1990 there. Yeah, so that is when
of blue, then it's
exactly
serious bigger stripes of red.
Exactly. So 1990 we start misbehaving with our human activities, and that means we are increasing what Felix is calling global warming. We are making the world heat zone. That is how we get there.
Well, that is how we get to the blue zones. These statistics run up to 2010, and the United Nations Organization on Climate Change are putting up on a campaign, and I like that they're adopting consideration of COVID-19, the pandemic. Wear your mask is what we're simply saying. But to the gentleman wearing the stripes, you can actually keep this for you know, your ordinary jackets.
Yeah, they're good.
Nice.
Well, first, Molin, thank you. We are looking smart. That is one. But of course, being smart on purpose, that is communicating that we must do something. What is that the ordinary Ugandan must do to ensure we fight these alarming, alarming colors of red in terms of high temperatures when it comes to our nation, Uganda?
It is a critical year, actually, looking at what the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change is talking about. 2021 is a critical year. And at the same time, we have Uganda. For the very first time, they're asking all these countries that are party to this organization to come up with new climate plans. Now, this is where I'm going to have my eyes looking at our climate scientists and our policymakers and all the national delegates that we always send to the UN to talk about this. I have my eyes on you guys. I want to see what new climate, because the UN is not joking this time. They want new plans, and this is supposed to help us fight climate change. That is for sure.
Well, climate change it is, and the expectations that all Ugandans will be abiding will be helped to assist the temperatures come down. But nevertheless, you see with the growing population, it's hard to manage. But also, again, as Molin would say, policy does matter, because at the end of the day, it's government to help us regulate on the kind of activities, human activity, basically, from what she's saying. But anyway, I will leave that for them. Priscilla, the traffic lady, Molin, the weather lady, a lot of ladies.
And a lot of fathers on that side. Happy Father's Day to you guys, by the way. Robert and Felix. Yeah, good fathers.
Thank you so much. Also, we do celebrate all of you again who are fathers and fathers, not just Kirabo College's donors. We'll take a break. When we come back, Priscilla and Molen will be taking us through the next segment. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear a mask properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
Where's Bob? Anyone seen Bob? Bob? Bob!
Over here.
Where?
Over here.
How did you get in there?
With my Airtel Money MasterCard.
Airtel Money MasterCard? But you don't even have a bank account. How did you get a card?
Well, it's not a card, but it works just like one. It's virtual, so no plastic, and it's safer.
But what are you doing there?
I want to buy Nancy a birthday gift, book my flight tickets, renew my Big Click subscription, and order a shipment.
For all things online, the Airtel Money MasterCard. It's not a card, but works just like one. Get one on the Airtel Money menu on your phone.
Obadde okyeteekerateekera. Kaseera kakanaayo kyani mu kisaawe ky'omupiira kalimu vaawo mpitewo kaakaasa mmeeme n'obuwanguzi bw'ebyafaayo kyonna ekibaawo ng'abawagizi tuyimirira wamu ne ttiimu zaffe okutuusiza ddala ku nkomerero. Gino gye mipiira gy'oteekeddwa okulaba. Weekuumire ku GoTV olw'emipiira egy'akamalirizo egitabangawo mu byafaayo by'omupiira.
GoTV, love it.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning to you. 21st day of June 2021. This is Good Morning Uganda. Priscilla is my name. We now get to look at traffic updates and what the traffic is looking like. Expectedly, because we are in a full total lockdown, we will not be experiencing so much traffic on the roads. But while we, convert some of these routes into the heart of the city, we want to see some of the implications of the directives that are going to be affecting certain sectors. Now, sectors such as the food and market sectors, which would be agro most majorly, you would be looking at some of the markets. Now, we do have Nansana market. We're taking our route coverage from Nansana into the rest of the Kampala and seeing how it's experiencing total lockdown in terms of traffic. Now, we do have the Nansana market right before Opportunity Bank in Nansana, and the directive from the president was that people who are engaged in agro business, most especially retail-wise, would be in the market. So they're known as market vendors, and they have stalls in the market. And the directive was, you stay at your stall, you sleep at your stall, and the Ministry of Health was advised to give them mosquito nets to be able not to curb malaria while they're fighting COVID-19. And so we are yet to see some reports from our newsroom coming through in that direction on how the market vendors are adhering to the new terms and conditions of the second lockdown that we are facing in Uganda. We get to go past, this is Hoima Road that we're looking at. There's Opportunity Bank Nansana, which represents the banking sector equally, that has been heavily slapped by the second lockdown because, first of all, people had taken loans, fresh loans, and now they're going to have to find alternative ways to service those loans, and yet the pressure is on the banks. And as Felix had said, it all comes down to a chain, because the person who took the loan is going to be pressurized by the banker, and then the banker is pressurized by a bigger person, and the bigger person is being pressurized. It basically is all a circle. But the banks also have to figure out another way. And I've seen some messages coming through from some banks like Absa Bank. They are now, they're opening hours at 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. So I believe all your banks are adjusting opening and closing time between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. in consideration of curfew restrictions, and that people have to be home by 7 p.m. Then we come to the Nansana Municipal Council. Another directive that came through from the president is that there should be dissemination of responsibility in terms of task force and how they will be extending the services and the goods and anything they have to communicate with in terms of COVID-19. And municipal councils across the different regions and across Uganda are going to be part of the task force to be able to reach the grassroots person, wananchi, to be able to communicate the message of COVID-19 in regards to SOPs, in regards to vaccinations, in regards to Ministry of Health, and how people will be able to move from one place to another given whatever circumstances. Then we come to, still on Hoima Road, URA, you do have the Nansana branch. URA is still going to be collecting its taxes. They're helping the government to be able to attain the 22 billion that is going to be collected from Ugandans in the next financial year. So works are definitely going to be continuing for URA. You do have places like resorts, hotels that are going to continue happening. Now, there was a meme over the course of the weekend that came out, and the meme was one cartoon was looking from their window and seeing two other cartoons outside, and the two other cartoons had the ambience of, ooh, we're having a party and enjoying outside here. And the caption was how Ugandans look at tourists enjoying their own country when they are in total lockdown. The irony of some decisions. But we'll see how that is going to be interpreted in one way or another. That means that the airport is still open. People can go in and out, but terms and conditions do apply. Now is the time to have an LC letter. You must have your LC1's number. Now that one is a must. There's no way around it, because it's either LC1, 3 or 5 or the RDC of your region that is going to help you in order for you to do what you must do in a different community, in a different district altogether. Still on Hoima Road, we do have Eurocare Hospital, and the medical sector is another one that is heavily slapped by COVID-19. Molen yesterday did post something on her Twitter in regards to COVID-19 Ministry of Health and the recommendations for home care. I'll be engaging her on that later on. Still looking at Hoima Road from Nansana, we then get to interact with the Kampala Northern Bypass. Now, ideally on any given day, this should be cumbersome in terms of traffic. Would be experiencing some roads, especially for traffic coming in from Nansana, connecting into Namungona and then Kasubi to be able to connect to the likes of Namirembe, downtown Kampala, basically. But because we are in total lockdown, there's minimum movement of vehicles on the road, and vehicles accepted to move on the road are, as per the guidelines, essential workers. Even then, still, Ministry of Transport and Works and Honorable General Katumba Wamala are going to come up with all these restrictions, permits that should be given to the different essential workers to be able to do what they must do to keep this country going and informed and catering to the fight against COVID-19. Then we get to look at Nalwoga. It doesn't have so much traffic. If anything, there's only traffic that is one way, and that is traffic getting to the city. There's on the other side, traffic going out of the city is completely clear, and there's nothing to showcase there. We get to do the curve and step into Kasubi. We do have the Kasubi market right there, and that Kasubi market equally, because vendors were recommended to stay home, you won't be expecting so much traffic, except for people who actually bring in produce, perishables into the market, distribute to the market, and then they go back to the different regions. And those are trucks, they're majorly the ones also accepted to be on the road. We got to look at Hoima Road still continuing, and then it's going to lead us into Nankulabye. When we get into Nankulabye, again, the traffic lights here, you would be expecting some jump building up, but there's no jump building up, and that is definitely a connecting route to Makere Hill that then is going to lead you into the likes of Wandegea, and we also get to see a sneak peek of Wandegea. Commuter taxi stages would be having orange to red zones, but because taxis are completely and a total lockdown, you do see clear routes. So basically, across the whole city and across different towns and cities in Uganda, you're going to be having clear routes. Molen Kenyana, while we are enjoying these strips, but they are communicating a message. Yesterday you did post something regards COVID-19 and the stay home activation program that was produced by the Ministry of Health. Could you take us through that?
Yes, yesterday we had a campaign, and where UBC actually did cover that event live on our hashtag Act or Perish. So we're looking at what can be done, because the COVID-19 is here to stay. But then there has been a lot of herbalists around us everywhere, and people are almost poisoning themselves with most of these herbs because you don't know, it doesn't have a prescription. But now ministry has come out and given us a few guidelines on home care. So that's what the post was about, showing you the kind of concoction you can take from home. Jinga, you just make simple tea with jinga, with the oranges, or even most of the citric fruits, really. And that is all good. You don't have to go through all that, have all these herbs that you don't even know where they're coming from. So yeah, that was a good thing for ministry to do, and also prescribe a few over the counter medicine that can be done, like paracetamol if someone is feeling bad. And they also gave how many milligrams. So it's better for you to follow that instead of going to the pharmacy and ask for paracetamol that you don't even know which prescription you should follow. But yes, I commend them for having done that.
All right, so yesterday we had Act and Perish, and we will be having these conversations continuing. But you can head over to our Twitter handle, which is at UBC TV Uganda, and be able to catch up on these conversations and also catch up on the home remedies, especially medical remedies that were given in case you have been diagnosed with COVID-19. What are the prescriptions and what are the measurements in prescription and swallowing them? But we do have some respondents here that are catching us on Good Morning Uganda Live. You can stream live with us on Facebook, UBC TV, and on Twitter, UBC Television Uganda. We do have some messages here. Inbox, box 1, you're saying, good morning, always asks the Almighty what you need when it rains. Indeed, raining is the blessing. Well, Robert did talk about rain as a blessing. Molen is going to explain to us as to why we are having rains in a season that shouldn't be a rainy season.
Yes, it's actually a good thing, and it is true that rains are a blessing. So yes, we're happy that these rains are coming in. But we're looking at a time where most parts of the southern sector, most especially for Uganda, are supposed to be having reduced wet weather activities. But like I mentioned, and I always want to emphasize this, the Lake Victoria Basin has a greater advantage. We are close to Lake Victoria, and this is one of the water bodies that actually influence the weather around the country. So that, over time, will definitely bring us most of these wet weather conditions, because it's locally influenced. And not only Lake Victoria, also like areas around Mount Elgon. That is where we have like Mbale, Bududa. These are areas that receive more rain. So it is also still influenced by the local climatology of the place.
Mollen, we still have another message here. 42 days ahead, but I know people also who have contracted COVID-19 have died and one hospitalized just yesterday. Stefan, you're also catching us on Good Morning Uganda. Thank you so much for being with us. Mollen, what does the weather update look like given that we have 2 minutes to go?
Yes, the weather actually is good. We've had rains. I don't know, I can't say that is good because we did have at least much of Lake Victoria Basin having that rainy condition, but now it's starting to clear, and that's a good thing. It also comes on a very good day when we are celebrating and Father's Day. It's also a good day when we are looking at globally the UN launching a campaign and also inviting weather presenters to participate in this warming stripe across the world. Now, someone might ask, why today? Why today? Also looking at a very important day in terms of meteorological calendar. We do have today as the winter stroke summer solstice. What does this mean? It marks the first day that we look at southern part of the hemisphere starting winter and also the northern hemisphere starting summer. Now, what is interesting about this day is that at the same time, the people in the southern hemisphere will have the shortest day of the year. Shortest day of the year. Longest day in the year. So that's the irony within the winter stroke summer solstice. But enough about that. We want to look at why are we talking about the warming trend. I want you to take a look at where we're seeing the red stripes. Really, we started good from the pre-industrial level, that is 1901. But over a few decades, and take a look at where 2020 is, because this data is going up to 2020. This is where we start to get things wrong. This is where temperatures are now becoming really a challenge. And it is also important to note that in the last decade, it is the time that we've seen 5 of the warmest years on record. So yes, it is clear that the temperatures are rising, the atmosphere is warming, but how did we get there? Because looking at all this red coming in, especially in the last decade, it shows us that there is need to have action on climate change. Guess what? Also, the World Meteorological Organization is telling us that now we're looking at 40% chance that even in the next 5 years, we could have one of the years going above in terms of rising temperatures. Because now, also Uganda, we are party to this organization, that is the UNFCCC, which is a convention on climate change. But now, for the first time, they're looking at 2021 as a critical year. They're asking all governments that are party to this to really come up with new climate plans. Look at what can be done in terms of reducing global emissions. We need to look at that. How can we reduce these emissions and look at a way to actually curb down climate change? This is really important, and we want to look at more. I will continue with the conversation on social media, and mostly it is under hashtag Show Your Stripes, and we'll be looking at more in that as the week goes through. We want to take a look at the weather we've had today, and mostly in terms of sunny and cloudy conditions, but we have that rain system that was there. I'll leave you with that. We do have more programming coming up. Do stick around for Good Morning Uganda. My name is Mollen Kenyana, wishing you a very, very good morning and have the rest of the day.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by
Tulantende ku program obulamu.
was brought to you by...
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send, and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN.
Wait, Abu. And what are you doing throwing papers all over the place?
I'm looking for an invoice for a sound system and cables that I received yesterday, but I can't find it.
You know there is a way of keeping all this in one place and available to you as and when you need it.
I really wish there was one, because the way these invoices grow legs and disappear.
I believe this is what you're looking for.
Now how did it get there?
Tabo! Do you know that with EFRIS, you can stay on track of all your business transactions and improve on your record keeping?
How so?
Katituliku computer with EFRIS. I just search using the fiscal document number and I retrieve the records I'm looking for. Bookkeeping becomes simple after that.
Kapo, awesome, yeah.
I began using URS Kakasa Solutions and now I'm in charge of my business. And you can as well.
Kakasa, be sure you are in charge of your business.
Uganda Revenue Authority. Developing Uganda together.
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send, and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we love, because it's those things that bring us close together.
Where's Bob? Anyone seen Bob? Bob? Bob!
Over here.
Where?
Over here.
How did you get in there?
With my Airtel Money MasterCard.
Airtel Money MasterCard? But you don't even have a bank account. How did you get a card?
Well, it's not a card, but it works just like one. It's virtual, so no plastic, and it's safer.
But what are you doing there?
I want to buy Nancy a birthday gift, book my flight tickets, renew my Big Click subscription, and order a shipment.
For all things online, the Airtel Money MasterCard. It's not a card, but works just like one. Get one on the Airtel Money menu on your phone.
Digital tax stamps are applied to goods or their packaging with security features or codes to avoid forging of goods and enable tracking and tracing capabilities.
Uganda Revenue Authority. Developing Uganda together.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
We know times are hard for every Ugandan because of the COVID-19 pandemic and now the lockdown where movements have been restricted, but also ways and how to access to workplaces, and also some of the workers and less essential workers, these areas are now closed. We sympathize with you, and all we call upon is tolerance, let each other support one another in whatever way you can, because people are going through a lot of hard moments as per now. But we want to look at what is the situation when it comes to COVID-19 in our prisons. Yes, one wise man once said that everybody is a potential prisoner, and not everybody who is within the prisons is guilty. That is why we have those on remand and then the convicts that have been convicted of their offenses. Now with me in studios today I have the spokesperson of Uganda Prisons, that is Frank Baine. Frank, you're most welcome to our studios.
Good morning, Mr. Kirabo. Good morning, viewers.
Well, before I go any further into COVID-19, I want you to first throw more light on some of the rumors, social media reports that we are seeing. Of course, you know, we are in a digital era. And one of the areas where we've seen sometimes uprisings is because of certain things that may seem so little or so minimal if they're not clarified. We saw recently those that were released from NUP, that is Eddie Motwe, or known as that is Eddie Serufu, and Nubianli, who is Ali Bukeni, claiming out and saying they were tortured, that they were searched in a manner that is humiliating, a manner that is really violation of their human rights, where they were stripped naked in the disguise of carrying out search by prison staff.
Well, thank you. That is a very wonderful question to ask me, and I'm glad that I am also using the media, like you are using the media, to exaggerate the speculations. One, the allegations have not started yesterday. I remember towards the elections, they alleged that Felix Nkunda was dead. And even Honorable Chagurani went there and saw Felix Nkunda. He was not dead, he was not even sick. Then somewhere there was a certain movie who they also claimed had died, they also appeared in court. Now, to come to this one, on two fronts, because of when those allegations came up first, the Parliamentary Committee on Defense and Internal Affairs came to Chitaria and visited. And they made the report to the Speaker. I am not them, but because it was a matter of national concern, the Speaker received the report and nothing had grain of what was being alleged. Two, Zake, Honorable Zake, emerged on another occasion and raised the point of concern about torture in Chitaria, in human condition, rice and bed bags, filthy environment, and the like. And the Committee of Parliament on Human Rights visited and also made a report to the Speaker. And none of those allegations was actually what? Right.
Going to the recent allegations.
Now, when we come to the Eddie Mutwe, the only unfortunate part is that somebody goes and talks, you are coming to the prison as a prisoner and you want to become the specialist prisons manager to know how you're supposed to be managed. I have this book, it's a Prisons Act. This is an act of Parliament. Section 62 says, every prisoner shall on admission to a prison and subsequently at such a times as the officer in charge may determine, be searched and all prohibited articles removed from his or her possession. And the search shall be conducted by a prison's officer of the same sex as the prison being searched. And shall not be conducted in the presence of a person of the opposite sex. Now, this is the Prisons Act. That means any person that steps in the prison on admission must be searched. Now, when we go to the regulations, regulations answer to the Act. All these are laws. They are not speculations. They are not the.
In brief, what does the regulation say about this?
The regulation says, this is Regulation 2, Regulation 4, search on admission. Every prisoner shall be searched when taken into custody by prison staff on admission into prison. The manner of search, which is Regulation 5. A prisoner shall be searched in a manner as is consistent with the necessity of discovering a concealed article. The stripping. A prisoner shall not be stripped and searched in sight of another prisoner. But stripping is a standard operation on admission search. Why? because you come with your scars, where you are arrested or the old ones, as soon as you reach the prisons, like they are arranging, if we had not written the marks they came with, they would be showing everybody what the marks we have put on them. But fortunately, those marks are coded.
So stripping is within.
It is actually an international standard. It's not
stripping to look for any concealed object.
Two, you have seen that you are looking for a concealed object. From the clothes, where would you look for the concealed object? Either it is the nose, the mouth, the middle of the hands, even the anus. Because those are the areas where prisoners hide contrabands. So there was nothing that was done outside the law. If he had never seen it, of course he wouldn't have seen it. It never happens in the public. But first consult the law before you are allege of torture, before you are allege of mistreatment. Please, these laws have been here. These are laws of Uganda, and we are complying with laws of Uganda.
Okay, that well explained. And of course now we all know that whatever the allegations were, they were done within confines of the law and the standards governing Uganda prisons. Now, Afande, let's move to COVID-19 in prisons. One of the interesting bit here is that we have 260 prisons in Uganda, that I'm quite sure of, and these have the capacity to have 20,000 inmates. But unfortunately, currently our percentage, I mean the figures of the prisoners we have today, the inmates, stand at 63,822. You're supposed to have 20 inmates, but you have 20,000 inmates, but you're having 63,000.
So we have 3 times the number.
3 times the number. Now, Afande, in the times of COVID-19, we know that, of course, the law must take its course. But we also know that where we have people congested, that is a very good fertile breeding area for COVID-19, the spread of COVID-19. Prisoners have been looking at your statistics. You've so far registered 1,312 cases. Recovery stand at 111 cases, then death is 1. This sounds a successive story. First, let's begin with a good bit of it. How have you managed, despite this high population of inmates in very small places, managed to have
one thing I have to alert the Ugandans about is that, you see, Ugandan prisons can't avoid COVID for one thing. As long as police is arresting people and bringing them, then it means we can't stop the inflow. But carefully, the other first time when there was a lockdown, one of the fastest things we had to do was to create 59 prisons as reception centers or isolation centers for all the newcomers. Kampala alone has 5, including Chitaria, Kasangati, Kauga, Sentema, Rugazi, and Chigo women. Now, when we created those isolation centers, we have been so lucky that all the cases of COVID have emerged in these isolation centers. People have come. What happens is that we open, when you open a prison, let's say this is Kauga, and say for the next 2 weeks, Kauga will be the one receiving prisoners from all over metropolitan Kampala. When it fills up, then you close. Then as you keep sampling tests, then you wait for at least 28 days. Then when you are sure that now there is nothing, then you will distribute to them. But if you test and there is a test that comes up, or if you want is tested, then you test everybody. Then you see, because by the time you go the 3rd, 4th test, you realize that those who have cleared. Then we quickly went on and established what we call treatment centers for prisoners. Because we are envisaging that if you had 200 prisoners for sick at a go, which hospital would accommodate them? That means it will turn into a prison. And then that will be commotion. So we established treatment centers. We have a treatment center in Gulu. We have a treatment center in Moroto. We have a treatment center in Jinja. We have a treatment center in Imbarara. And we have a wing in Chitaria reserved for those who will be terminally, prisoners who are terminally sick, those who need oxygen. The ICU section of the prisons is in Chitaria. But fortunately, we have not had anybody in ICU. We have not had anyone with severe conditions. We have had mild and asymptomatic. And of course, beyond that, then we changed into the system. We improved on our feeding. We increased on our hygiene. And that's why, in the whole world, I think Uganda Prison Service has the most successful story that yes, we have had cases, yes, we have managed cases, and even that man of September who died from Masaka was brought when he was already...
The one who was brought from Zimbabwe?
From Zimbabwe. He was already terminally sick. There is nothing much we could do to save his life. But thank God, the rest of the people that have fallen sick, staff and inmates, they have all been able to recover.
But we must accept that, yes, the first wave, we didn't have an uprising in cases. We didn't see most complicated or severe illnesses. That was the first wave. Actually, majority of the people were symptomatic. Yeah. And then also we know that a majority, which are youth, looking at your statistics, of course, you have more of the youth, were able to fight this. But when it comes to the second wave, even the youth are going into severe illnesses, and the numbers are so high. So how have you strategically positioned yourself to handle these increasing numbers? And more so now when we see guidelines, we've not yet had the social instrument on figures to be paid. Recently, we saw those that were gotten from Garage, and also that is level were all taken in at Chitara. So how are you preparing? This is a bigger burden, we believe.
No, we are ready. The good thing is that you see Chitaria, we had not made it for this kind of work. Chitaria was made as a maximum security prison, ready to receive 3,000 inmates, and its purpose was to decongest Ruzira for the long termers. Actually, it has big workshops, it has big schools and the like. Now, minus the schools and the workshop, its capacity is 3,000. And if we, because we hadn't stocked those workshops and the like, if we go like by the population we are in Ruzira, upper prison, if we are to do it the same way for Chitaria, Chitaria can take up to 10,000 inmates. But since we started using it, it has not gone beyond 3,000. It hasn't gone beyond its capacity. So the congestion that is there, and one thing we see that we do is that because we get these people, push them through this process of quarantine and testing. Now, when they are done, we don't keep them there. Apart from those with higher security concerns, are those ones keep in Chitaria. But the rest keep on going out, being redistributed. Now, why the numbers are increasing, also we need to know is that when you saw the guidelines from the Chief Justice, courts are almost at a standstill. Video teleconferencing does not cover the entire country. Now, we are even stuck with the convicts who are being discharged because there is no inter-border transport. We are in negotiations, say that we could use our trucks since they are from in and we are sure they are secure, but we still have to get clearance from the Prime Minister so that we move. We keep on taking them route by route, but we still have them. So now when they finish the sentence, they remain as Rogers. That's why you see the numbers. At the time this second wave came, our population had dropped again to 59,000. But now it has gone back. It's actually going back upwards. Yet at the peak of COVID last time, it had gone to 65,000. So we are now headed back to where we were at the previous peak. So the only thing which is actually, as you say, worrying is that now there is no young, there is no old. Everybody picks it. And when it picks it, then the consequences are dire. And that's why we have to insist that please, let's observe the SOPs. But last time we were making an appeal, and I don't know how it can happen, but if police was arresting and checking, for us we would be safe. Yeah, but as long as police
arrest, then
as long as they are arresting and bringing without checking, then we are vulnerable. But thank God we have been vaccinated. The majority of us have been vaccinated twice. There are some few who remained, but we hope with this batch which came, if we can get another like maybe 7,000 or 10,000 doses, then we can now complete the process.
When you talk about being vaccinated, you're talking about the prison warders, prison staff, but you have families. Yes. They have families. This and also vaccination is no guarantee that you don't get COVID. You just survive severe illness and death. Let's look at also prisons that are not receiving new entrants. For example, Ruzira right now, where I know there are full detention centers. How is the safety where we see officers maybe moving in, moving out? How have you...
No. According to the recent guideline or administrative instruction by the Commissioner General, we went back to standby class 1. There is restricted movement for those. Not everybody you see moving deals with prisoners. Those who are dealing with prisoners are restricted in a manner that they cannot contaminate the prisoners or they don't get contaminated from the outside. But of course, the instructions also include of we don't allow any visitors anymore. We have suspended all visits, whether by lawyers, whether by relatives. We have suspended visits of our families who are outside and relatives. We have suspended visits from the neighboring community to enter the prison precincts. And we have put measures that every staff that must go out with the clearance of where he's going and what he's going to do, not in a crisscrossing. But one good thing is that, you see, when people have the information, they are equipped to know that this thing is not only dangerous to the ones you are taking it to, but even you yourself. Now, of course, you saw what happened from schools. Most people who are parents know that our children came back with COVID. And most of them are being retreated. But fortunately for them, the young people recover very fast. But there are very many. Every day I'm getting this. They are telling you this one has gone, this one has gone, this one has gone. And most of them pick it from these young people who come close to them. So that's why, Kirabo, you have to be very careful. We have it is our responsibility. The only way to fight COVID is for us to be disciplined. This morning I got disappointed when I was coming and I was seeing people just packed and walking in line. Now, the reason of lockdown is for people to keep in one place, so that you first adjust and see whether the symptoms are spreading or not. Now, but if they say, don't use the vehicles and you still come move en masse.
You can take their pilgrims heading to something.
Now, moving en masse, then you have not solved the problem of transmission. And if we had been disciplined from the beginning, there wouldn't even have been need for this lockdown.
Afande, let's go back to the prisons and seeing how best we can prevent COVID-19 spread in these prisons. When we look at the figures, 1,312 is quite a big figure. Of course, the successful story is also interesting because you've been able to have 1,201 recoveries in prisons.
Yes.
What could be the permanent solution? You're looking at having tests done at police.
Yes.
This we've not seen. Prisons, you've always boasted of proper medical services.
Yes.
Why can't we have the rapid diagnostic kits available for you to at least
you see,
test prisoners on arrival?
By the time you do that, you have already... You see, there are those ones who are not detected by that rapid testing. That's why I'm saying that if we had broke the problem from the source, then we would ensure that any person arrested, before he goes into a cell, that's where he's checked and the status established. If it means treatment, then because of course the police will tell you that you know the 48-hour rule. No. For us, if we were in the know that this person is already positive, then we would know how to isolate this person. But what happens is that there is an operation downtown, they get people, they bring all of them, and they push them to prisons. So the matter must be sorted out from prisons. That's why the only easiest way to sort them out was to create these isolation centers. You'll come as a batch, we put you in one place. We do random sampling tests of the test, then the results inform us. Do we have a problem in this group or don't we have a problem? When we find a problem, like the recent one of Nakasongola, when they did the testing, because that is one of the isolation centers for Central, then they found 2 women. They said no, then they tested everybody. When they tested everybody, the number now increased to 28. So you see, that's how we are doing that. But you see, that is going deep. If we are breaking the problem from the entrance, we would have much less challenge. But thank God, the procedure, the health procedure we have put in place is still able to serve us and serve the country without causing massive infections and therefore massive loss of life.
That is good enough, but it's almost temporary. What will happen in case we have more cases increase? In the first phase, we saw measures to decongest. We had petty offenders, they were pardoned.
Yes.
We had those...
That was in April.
That was in April. This time around, what measures are you looking at that are aimed at decongesting? Because we know, with high populations, at a time you're going to wither, you're going to become weak, and these institutions will not facilitate this spacing and isolation.
Well, of course, that's why there is that national task force for us, these figures, I tell you, we don't keep them to ourselves. These are figures we share with the court, we share them with the office of the Prime Minister, we share them with the Attorney General. These are the figures which are informative of decisions that take place at a higher level. Things to do with pardon, you know, the prerogative of mercy and the President, those are decisions that are much higher than us. But the best thing for us we do is to give the daily or hourly accountability of the numbers of the people that we have. Yes, if there can be another chance of pardon, it is very welcome. But as you see, it is the number of remands that are going up. And last time, you remember when they were pardoning the 4,000 who on remand, they were focusing on those who are violating a curfew and curfew deadlines and guidelines. But now, the majority of these people we are talking about, these are people who have delayed in prison simply because the court process is slow. Video teleconferencing is not covering the entire country. Then you see these suspensions of the sitting. Then when you see, this one it becomes very tricky. You are not going to say a man on murder that you walk home because they have delayed to try you. It may cause another problem. So, but like they did last time, these minor offenders can be catered for, then it would be a very big relief. And you know, our leadership, especially the president, is a parent. That's why he was even quickly able to know that schools were keeping quiet over children who are falling sick. So, and he had to rescue the children by returning the children to the parents. Yes, they might have brought the disease back home, but the management of children cannot be done better without the parents.
Let's also look at the health capacity of our various prisons. Yes, COVID is one of the risks that we must affront, but also we've seen a couple of issues regarding health in prisons where people have come out, former inmates have come out of the fact that there is so much that needs to be desired when it comes to health facilities in prisons.
Well, one thing that I agree, Mr. Kirabo, we are not an island in this country. The status of the health conditions in our normal hospitals is the same status that we have in our prisons. Except that ours being a closed institution, actually our management is a bit better. But the resources are as meager as the other outside hospitals. Yes, of course, because of this congestion, we have a problem of diseases like TB and these other infectious diseases which we have to contend with. But fortunately, prisons has a whole department of health. We have over 10 doctors. Actually, we have a total of about 200 health workers. And the good thing is that every prison has a sick bay, has a clinic. But in case where they can't offer first aid, there is always a neighboring government hospital. That's why even right now, if you walked in any regional referral hospital, you'll find there are people putting on yellow. That means that those ones have the sickness whose capacity we can't handle. We need the support of the other bigger hospitals. Maction Bay Hospital is the national referral hospital for prisoners. When a prisoner is in Arua, another one may be Kabare, and they cannot be managed there, first they bring them to Maction Bay. When Maction Bay realizes if Maction Bay contends that they cannot manage the case, then now Murago, Rubaga, Mengo, and the like are involved. What we have only not done is to take prisoners outside the country. That one we have not. But moving prisoners within the country, if you go to Guru, even Racho Hospital, it's a private hospital, but you'll find there prisoners. If you go to Bushenyi, there is this SDA hospital. So we have those partnerships with health facilities which are more advanced than us, that cooperate with us to manage the health matters of the prisons.
Finally, in the interest of time, also this will be a clarification. Actually, we've had a couple of reports, and I know you've also had this, where people are being fleeced of their monies, where people call relatives and allude the fact that an inmate has passed on. So please send mobile money. I've had a lot of these reports and followed them up with police. Afande, what is the procedure in case an inmate dies in cells? You know, now transport is hard, people getting clearance, and here people with evil minds are taking advantage of this situation.
Kirabo and dear viewers, I remember at least in about every month I talk about this matter. But our Ugandans are so quick and easy to donate money to wrong people. The procedure is that when a person dies in a prison, first of all, police has to be called in. That is if he has died within the prison, maybe in a garden or in the ward. Police comes in on the scene, they check, then they issue forms. And literally they are the ones who instruct that this body has to be taken to the neighboring mortuary. Because every prisoner that dies must have a post-mortem done in the mortuary. Now, when a prisoner dies and the body is going to the mortuary, the officer in charge, among others, he informs court, informs police, informs the relatives. And the relatives, then apart from the relatives, we inform the RDC and the cow of the records, according to the records, where the prisoner told us. Of course, some prisoners will tell you lies. That's where the problem is. But everybody that dies in the prison ends up in the mortuary. And if you are a relative and you are looking for this prison, the body, you go to the mortuary because information will be available. Anybody who tells you that send mobile money and I bring your dead body, that one is a thief. And there is nobody that is buried in the prison land except a condemned prisoner to a sentence to hanging and has been ordered to be hanged. The death row prisoners who are hanged according to the law, those are the ones who remain government property. But even a prisoner sentenced to death, when he dies of other causes, the body is taken to the mortuary and the relatives have the right to do the burial. So, nobody should tell you lies that you send mobile money to bring you the body. They will not bring it, you are just donating money. And in most cases, some of those people are not sick. The whole of this last week, I have been called, Jamiru Mukuru is dead, you have concealed Jamiru Mukuru's death. Now, you people, why do you want to kill people who are still alive? We have official communication channels. I have never failed to communicate. Please, when you are not satisfied, you use the right channels. But the issue of mobile money, we don't operate on mobile money for delivering dead prisoners to the mortuary. And for us, our contact with the relative of the prisoner is that we inform them where to get the body. They don't come to the prison to pick their body. The body is picked from the mortuary.
Finally, let me have your final remarks regarding that is the state of COVID-19 in prisons, and of course, a message of hope to Ugandans at such a trying moment.
Yeah, fellow Ugandans, I'm very proud that, yes, as we have seen, the mortality from COVID-19 is on the increase, but still, if we exercise the discipline, the recoveries are so much. That's why, one, we have to listen to the medical guidance, we have to listen to the government instructions, we must avoid the things they have told to avoid. And let's make sure we maintain our immunity. Even as we are home, let's grow the greens. The body entirely, largely, like 90% depends on the green to boost its immunity. Not the meats, not the chips. So let's look for the green. Let's do the herbal in addition to the right prescribed medicine. When you are sick, seek medical attention. But let's cooperate. Let's not look at people in uniform as the enemies. No, we are scoring in the same goal, except that the problem with us, we work on instructions. You want to work on emotions and feelings. Young men, please, you may be safer, but don't kill our elderly. So let's protect ourselves, let's protect our elders. We need this Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is Frank Baine, who is the spokesperson of Uganda prisons. Please stay away. let's comply with the regulations, the SOPs, but also let's be law-abiding at such a trying moment to avoid ending up in Baine's many refer to as University. Well, I'm library informed that His Excellency President Museveni will this morning preside over, that is the swearing in of the new cabinet ministers at a scientific ceremony at Koro ceremonial grounds. The event will be broadcasted live on all televisions and radio stations in Uganda. So please tune in. UBC will be giving you this as events unfold right from Kororo. I'll leave you with Ruben to take you through the world of sports. Stay safe, and let's be tolerant to one another. Please, we know these are trying moments. Let's be a brother's keeper and support the way you can to a colleague. God bless you. See you tomorrow, same time.
Therefore, understanding this model. Hey, excuse me, lady. Who do you think you are? A queen?
Hey, haven't you heard? Get Airtel Chillax bundles and browse like a queen.
Get Airtel Chillax bundles that do not expire and browse like a queen or king. Dial *175# or use My Airtel app.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field couldn't be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite shows.
My radio is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.